Hi there. Business students are nearly all familiar with the idea of entrepreneurship, but what's meant by intrapreneurship? It sounds similar, and it is similar, but there are some small differences. So let's take a look at this concept. Intrapreneurship is very similar to entrepreneurship in the sense that we're trying to encourage people to demonstrate entrepreneurial activity. But the key here is that the activity is for the benefit of the business, the employer, rather than for the person, the entrepreneur, him or herself. A couple of famous examples of intrapreneurship before we explain how it works and what businesses can do to encourage it. If you're a fan or user of Gmail, you're one of the beneficiaries, I guess, of Gmail, Google's policy of allowing staff to have time at work to work on personal projects, personal ideas. And one of those was Gmail, which launched, 14, 15 years ago. The result of allowing staff to have, I think it was up to 20% of their time to work on ideas of their own. And similarly, the PlayStation, fans of PlayStation should know that PlayStation was actually developed by a Sony employee who'd been messing around with his daughter's Nintendo to try and make it more powerful and user-friendly. And what came from that work, and obviously then developed by the Sony team, was the Sony PlayStation. So, intrapreneurship can work. But let's just firstly consider how it differs from entrepreneurship. If you're looking at entrepreneurship, the key here is to think about where do the rewards go and who takes the risk. So with entrepreneurship, the rewards to being enterprising go to the entrepreneur, the business person. But similarly, the entrepreneur takes the risk of the idea failing, the business failing. Whereas with intrapreneurship, the difference is that the risk is taken by the company and the rewards, most of the rewards, go to the business or the company. So, how do you do it? It sounds like a good thing to do. Well, the key thing is not to assume that intrapreneurship will happen. It needs to be encouraged. It needs to be facilitated to make it happen. And businesses have found various ways of doing this. One, as we've seen with the Google example, is to actually provide a policy, a structure of giving employees time away from their normal day-to-day work to allow them to develop business ideas. So as I say, I think with Google the idea was that they had 20% of their time where they could simply experiment and innovate on their own. Another way is to bring different functions together, perhaps even different teams in different countries together to try to work on innovation projects. That's another way of facilitating intrapreneurship. A third way, which is used by some, is to actually second staff to send them to smaller businesses or startups. It's often said that smaller businesses and startups, by definition, a startup is entrepreneurial. Therefore, there may be something that staff in a larger business can learn from working alongside entrepreneurial businesses. And another way is to hold specific competitions or days or periods of time when the agenda is all about innovation. For example, hackathons, development coding days to try to find ways of coming up with new, innovative ideas. It sounds easy. Why wouldn't you do it? Why do so many large businesses appear not to be entrepreneurial in spirit? Well, I think the answer is culture, isn't it? But almost by definition, a large and possibly a successful business must have a complacency, perhaps, an arrogance about how they've managed to develop their success. Therefore, that might stifle innovative activity, entrepreneurial activity. It could well be that bureaucracy gets in the way, or that the reward systems, how people are rewarded, how they're paid, don't actually provide an incentive for employees to be innovative, to think creatively. And I think you could also link intrapreneurship or the failure to be entrepreneurial in a business to short-termism, this idea of really only making decisions that affect the business performance in the short term rather than perhaps a more long-term innovative perspective, which maybe is more consistent with intrapreneurial activity. So what do you need if you want to be entrepreneurial in a business, i.e. intrapreneurial? Well, I think the answer is culture. It's building a culture that says that being entrepreneurial is the right thing to do, even if you're an employee of a company. Encouraging creativity, encouraging innovation, and communicating and celebrating the activity of innovation, new ideas. There are also clearly things you can do in terms of reward systems. For example, providing some kind of share in the profits or the sales of products and services that arise from innovation, and also being prepared to back employees with their ideas, perhaps with an investment fund or some other financial resources that shows that the business is prepared to invest in creativity. So there we go, that's just an introduction to the concept of intrapreneurship.